want to welcome those who are watching online, ladies. We have surpassed the men. I don't know, I don't know if people like Ezekiel better than Daniel, but Sue, we're at over 500 every week who will watch Ezekiel, and the men are about 400, so we'll have a little contest going on. But welcome. Turn in your Bibles to Ezekiel 20. Now this is a long chapter, but we will finish today. And I just told the ladies in the room, great group by the way, and I know some of you are watching online. You told me you couldn't be here today. Catherine's maybe coming in a little bit, but we will not meet next week. That's July the 4th. Hope you have a great holiday on July the 4th. Stay safe, have fun with family, but we typically will not meet on national holidays. And then we will not meet the next week because Rochelle and I will be out of state, got a couple of speaking engagements. So that's the 4th and the 11th, a 2-week July break. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So come back ready to go. So thank you all. By the way, if you're not a member of my Substack, I say this not to brag. I say this because it's reaching more people. It's reached number 9 in the United States on the category, which is huge. And today there was a brilliant article by Aaron Hopper. You guys know Aaron Hopper? Yeah. Guest post. It's on the resurrection. One of the, Sue, I just saw you liked it. It'll take you 15 minutes to read. Or if you don't know, you can listen to someone reading it. Just press up at the top and it takes about 20 minutes. And I've learned how to do it so that the AI speaker is smoother. And I think you'll really enjoy listening it via audio. So anyway, Jan, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy birthday. I'm going to lead us in prayer unless you have anything for us, and we'll jump right in to the text.
I have some things to mention.
Mention them.
Well, I am thankful that Bill is here. I was so shocked to see him this morning. Karen has a big praise. Everybody should rejoice with her. Remember Barb Ebert and her family in their service this afternoon at 1, which Wade mentioned. Pray for our friend Sue. She has a doctor's appointment this afternoon.
We will, Sue, and how's Wayne?
He is doing really well.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Thank you, Brad. That might be it. And I am thankful for 80 years of...
What?
Yeah.
It's a sin to lie.
I'm sorry.
Okay. You just turned 80 today? I never would have guessed. You're so active and...
Well, I hope I stay that way, but it's been... I think God's been good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You and Tom both. Well, let me lead us in prayer. Father, thank you for these ladies, for Jan, for Bill, for their leadership here at Astoria. And Lord, I pray as we study your word today, really encourage us from what at first glance sure seems to me, at least, Lord, like a passage of judgment. My prayer is that when we get through, we might see that even your judgment is designed for the good of your people, and that through judgment on a nation, people are humbled, broken, and trust you. Thank you, Lord, for your Spirit in our hearts, and guide us as we study Ezekiel 20. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, here we go. This is a division of the scroll of Ezekiel, and we're at 20. Can you believe that? 20 weeks. Hazel, by the way, your daughter watches all the time. Your daughter watches online? Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I see her comments. Chapters 1 through 24 are prophecies against Judah and Jerusalem. And by the way, Rochelle, just like Isaiah, when you get to chapter 39, there's an attack of Assyria on Judah, and then the section breaks. Isaiah 40, same thing here. In Ezekiel 24, you have the attack of Babylon on Jerusalem. And Then 25 through 32, prophecies against nations around Judah, because what's interesting, Sue, one of the neighboring nations, when Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, they came in and they plundered, they stole, they came after the remnant of God's people left behind, including Jeremiah. So even the people left behind who weren't taken into Babylonian bondage had to flee to Egypt. Well, God brings judgment against these nations that do that. And so we'll study that. Then the key thing, the thing that I want you to remember, and I'll make a prediction. Chapters 33 of 48 through 48 of Ezekiel will become in your top 5 favorite sections of Scripture in the Old Testament. They're extraordinary because it's the gospel. It's the new covenant. And Jan, you told me the other day, you said, really, I never got much application out of the Old Testaments. Right?
Absolutely, I didn't.
Yeah, till we start. No, I'm with you. Yeah. Well, boy, you'll get it from this, because it's like reading Romans 1 through 16. And it is 16 chapters. Just like Isaiah 40 through 55. 16 chapters, just like Romans. And the gospel is contained in it. And just to give you a clue, you remember that Ezekiel story of the valley of dry bones? They had that great song, those dry bones coming. Okay, that's you. You're coming to life by the power of the Spirit. So we'll study that when we get there. Okay? Now, this is the geology of our study. You see Jerusalem, been in the news. We were very grateful, Karen, that we weren't in Israel. How many of you have been to Israel with us? Okay? You've gone to Israel. The last time we went, do y'all remember they had fired a couple of missiles? Bill, were you on that plane?
We were leaving Tehran. No, we were leaving Tel Aviv as they were coming in. We were the last flight out of the...
No, that's exactly. And then they shut it down. Yeah.
They shut it down.
Yeah. Well, I have some friends, Rochelle, I've just found out that they got stuck. And they were there for weeks, went to the bomb shelter 20 different times in their hotel, couldn't get back. Can you imagine, Bill, having our group, Sue, of... Oh, anyway. So, I showed you last week. This is a rock, but this is Babylon. And by the way, Babylon's empire spread, but this was the capital. Babylon, the city, which is now destroyed. I think I've told you before, Saddam Hussein was the king of Iraq. He was excavating it before the American soldiers, took him down to build his palace. And that flag, if you ever go in to the men's restroom right here, Rochelle, I think it's right there. There's the flag of those soldiers that were Air Force soldiers, pilots, that were in that palace watching a manual online. And they sent me that flag saying, we look forward to every Sunday, because they give them Sunday off, and they sit in Saddam Hussein's bedroom and watch. And they're like, and you talk about us, where we're sitting. I thought that was cool. So anyway, here's Iran. Here's Tehran. Let me show you. Some of you have seen it on Facebook. But the bombings that happened, by the way, Sue, I posted this and you said, I thought of you. I thought, Sue learns visually. And so in my mind, when I hear where the bombings took place, I immediately knew how close it was to what we're studying. But I did this to show Sue. The media that says minimal damage, remember that report? Absolutely absurd. They are totally obliterated. Why then does the media say minimal damage? Well, true. They're liars. They don't want Trump to be praised. They want to bring him down. They're gone. It's going to take them years. Look, this is Tehran up here. Look how far away they are. But look at this. It's almost parallel to what we're studying. Just a little east. Now, there are some mountains here that separate Iraq and Iran. And there's some mountains that separate on this side Iran from India and from China and so on. And Russia to the north. So this is all kind of like in a valley. But what Israel has done in taking out the air defenses is extraordinary. There are no air defenses. Now, that's the only reason the United States could go in. But, look, here's modern Baghdad. This is where Daniel lived, ancient Babylon, and this is where Ezekiel lived. It was like a walk from Wacomus to Enid. That's Tel Aviv. Okay, now, Babylon was like the New York City of the United States. Why did Nebuchadnezzar take the Jews to Babylon? Yep. Build the gardens and the walls. He took them as the artisans. The Babylonian Empire, Nabopolassar was Nebuchadnezzar's king. The Babylonian Empire lasted 70 years, from 609 to 539. Now, sometimes, if you're a historian and you're listening to me, you're like, wait. The Babylonian Empire lasted longer than that. No. The Assyrian Empire. The Babylonians did exist, but they didn't take power over the world until they conquered Assyria in 609 BC and lasted 70 years. And Jeremiah prophesied that the Babylonian Empire would last for 70 years. And this is a critical thing, April, when you're in small group and people ask you the question, how long did the Jewish exile into Babylonian captivity last? Everyone in the room is going to say 70 years. Didn't last 70 years. Jerusalem was destroyed in 586, and that's when the Jews were taken into captivity. Prior to that, it was commercial exchange. It was economic slavery. But it wasn't like the slavery that occurred after Jerusalem was destroyed in the anger of Nebuchadnezzar for the Jews. So most people say 70 years. No, the Babylonian Empire lasted 70 years. So from 586 to 539, how many years is that? 47? That's how long all the Jews were in captivity. So this is a very key map, and you're going to understand in just a moment why. In 605 BC, I'm going to ask you a question. This is the first time Nebuchadnezzar takes some people to Babylon from Jerusalem to help him in commercial work. Who are the ones that went in 605? Anybody want to take a guess? No, very good. Very good. 8 years later, he comes back because he wants to please his wife. He wants to build a bathroom for his wife. I joke, I'm doing that, trying to remodel our bathroom for my wife. He wants to build the Hanging Gardens of Babylon for his wife. So he comes back and he takes 10,000 other of the best from Jerusalem. Jews, including who? Ezekiel. Ezekiel in Jerusalem was studying to be what? Very good, a priest. He comes from a priestly family. By the way, anybody know in English the surname, the Jewish surname that identifies them as coming from an ancient priestly family? You probably don't. It's Cohen. C-O-H-E-N. There's some politicians, if you ever see anybody named Cohen, and sometimes it's with a K, you know their families were priests in ancient Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay, so Ezekiel goes, the 10,000 Jews live in Tel Aviv, south of Baghdad. Daniel works in the palace, lives in Babylon. He becomes a political, the guys get upset with me. We're studying Daniel. They say he was never elected. Don't call him a political representative of the people. And you know what? They're right. So we call Daniel deep state. He was deep state in the Babylonian Empire. He was in politics, government, while the Jews lived south. And Ezekiel was called by God, Ezekiel 1 through 3, to be what? Not a priest, but a prophet. He's called to be a prophet. What does prophet mean? What does prophesy mean? Twofold. Prophet in Hebrew simply means to reveal the mind of God. That's it. Sometimes it involves the future, Sally. Sometimes it doesn't. It just involves, this is what God thinks. And so he speaks on behalf of Yahweh. However, as we have seen, Ezekiel, who is the same age as Daniel, buddies with Daniel, friends with Daniel, mentored back in Jerusalem when they were kids by who? Jeremiah. Ezekiel is called to be a prophet. Unlike Daniel, he does marry. And his wife dies when? The day Jerusalem fell, his wife died. And what did Yahweh tell Ezekiel to do? Do not cry. Do not cry. By the way, if you ever see a woman or a man not crying at a spouse's funeral, be careful before you judge what's going on. And just remember Ezekiel, he didn't cry. Okay. But he was commanded not to. Interesting, isn't it?
How do you just turn your emotions off like that?
I think if God tells you something, He gives you.
No, good point, April. Good point. Good point. If you didn't hear Rochelle, it's like, how can you just turn your emotions over? And April responds, if God tells you something, He gives you the grace to do it. I think you're right. If God tells you not to do something, He'll give you the grace not to do it. And, Rochelle, you and I experienced that with the International Mission Board. God really specifically told me to defend our missionaries who were trying to be removed. I won't go into the story, but the cost was high. But you know what? He gave us the grace to endure. By the way, Ezekiel, the Jews say, there's no recording of when he died, but you can see, unlike Daniel who lived, Jan, at least to 85, I think probably to 87, 89, and was buried in Susa, Iran. Here, this is Ezekiel's tomb, modern day, still exists. It's in a mosque, but if you go in, you can, you can't get there now. Iran won't let Americans in. But he died at 52. And the Jews say he died because some of the Jews who ended up coming to exile after 586 BC, they blamed Ezekiel for what happened. And they killed him. That's what the Jews say. So most of his prophecies are acted out. This is the prophecy in Daniel 4, the pan in front of his face. He builds a mock city of Jerusalem, ramparts, cuts his hair, throws a third of his hair in the air, burns a third of his hair, chops a third up, and basically his scribe, probably, maybe his wife, writes down on a scroll, this is you, Jerusalem. You're going to be under siege. A third of you will die by famine, a third of you by the sword, and a third of you will be scattered to the wind when the city and Judah is destroyed. That's a prophecy. Well, these scrolls, these little scrolls that Ezekiel would have transcribed, whoever did it, either he or his wife, whoever, because he's not speaking, he's acting out. And everybody thinks he's a nut. But word begins to spread that God is speaking through this prophet, Ezekiel. And so his scrolls are sent back to Jerusalem, and as we have seen, they are read to the people. And everybody is ticked off. Ticked off! Are you kidding me? He's telling us there in Babylon that we in Jerusalem are going to be destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar because of our idolatry to God? Are you kidding? He's the one in captivity. We're God's chosen people. They got all upset except for who? Jeremiah, who basically says, listen to him. Listen to him. He's saying what I've been saying for an entire generation. If we don't repent, we're going to go the way that our brothers in the north went. And they got so upset with Jeremiah, what did they do to him? Threw him in prison. Where did they imprison him? Underneath King Zedekiah's house. So let's start. Ezekiel 20, that's the background. And it's 44 verses, I believe. So we're going to have to proceed rapidly through it. But as we read along, we'll make comments. And ladies, feel free at any time to ask any questions. Before I start reading, does anybody have a comment or question of what we've just said? Anybody?
I do. What version of the Bible do you read?
That's a great question. I read the New American Standard Version, 1995. The New American Standard Version was, in 1995, they did a few things different and made it better. Does that make sense? But I like ESV. I sometimes will read from the NIV. And as we all know, what language did Ezekiel write in? Hebrew. What language did Daniel write in? Hebrew. But there are 4 chapters written in Aramaic, which is the Babylonian language. And you'll understand why that's important in just a moment. I have a slide for you. When Nebuchadnezzar was saved, I'll use it in our lingo. When Nebuchadnezzar was saved, he was broken by God of his pride, ate grass like an animal, which, by the way, is still called Nebuchadnezzar's disease. And as recently as last time I checked, we had 5 people in Oklahoma being treated for Nebuchadnezzar's disease. They were eating grass. And the only clinic that takes care of them is in Tulsa. It used to be Shadow Mountain. Yeah. So there's statistics on it. But he was saved. He came to faith in Yahweh. And in Daniel chapter 4, in his own hand, and in the language of Aramaic, translated into English, he gives his testimony. And so I say all the time, never give up on that wayward grandchild. Because if God can save Nebuchadnezzar, He can save your grandchild. Make sense? All right, let's go on. Verse 1. Now in the 7th year, in the 5th month, on the 10th of the month, certain of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yahweh, and they sat before me. Now, as we read that verse, what 2 things come to your mind? I'm not looking for a right answer. I'm looking for what you're thinking when you read that verse. If this were a devotional, and you just have a cup of tea, and you're reading this, I'll put you on the spot, Rochelle. What's the first thing you think to yourself when you read that verse? I'm not looking for a right answer, just what do you think?
The elders are coming to Ezekiel.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Where is Ezekiel? Is he not in
He's in
Tel Aviv?
he's in
So
Tel Aviv.
They make the journey from Jerusalem
That
to...
is a great question. If you didn't hear, the question is, are these elders making the journey to Jerusalem to inquire, which took 40 days? What did I say? I'm sorry. From Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, or are they part of the 10,000 elders in Tel Aviv? Does that make sense? Okay, so you have to ask, which are they? I'll give you my opinion. I think this is the second time elders make their way from Jerusalem to visit with Ezekiel. Because his scrolls are being read, and they're like, wait a second, we got to find out if this guy's legit. Does that make sense? It'd be like watching Christian television and hearing a message on the rapture and saying, is this guy legit? Maybe. Sue's laughing. She knows what I'm doing. Okay, so is there a second thing in this text that you like? What?
You're asking Ezekiel to speak for God.
Bingo. I love that. Yeah. It's like they come to inquire of Yahweh and they come to Ezekiel, which means that obviously something has happened to cause them to say, oh, this guy, he's legit. So they want to hear from Yahweh. So the question is, why don't they just go to the high priest in Jerusalem? Why don't they just talk to people in Jerusalem?
Because they're not saying the things that Ezekiel's saying.
Correct. They're saying just the opposite. All the false prophets are They set up the idols of Babylon in the temple courtyard. And they're saying, oh yeah, we're children of Yahweh, but we're going to worship all the gods around us. And by the way, we're God's chosen people. He's going to prosper us. And so they're like, well, now wait a minute. Ezekiel's saying we're going to be destroyed. So why don't we just come and inquire of Yahweh? But we'll ask Ezekiel. So obviously, word has begun to spread. Okay, is there a third thing? I keep pressing, huh? I knew you would say it.
All of the dates.
Bingo.
That stuff. I would look at that and think.
You'd go,
This is what I think. This has to be important because of the way he's got it broken down, but wouldn't have any idea how to figure out what its importance and relevance is. So I would skip it and go on, but I would know that I'm missing something because.
Oh, did we talk about this before we came in? No, not at all. That is exactly right, Rochelle. You would read this and you would say, oh, why so? In the 7th month, in the 5th month, on the 10th of the month, certain of the elders of Israel came. And you'd be like, I'll never forget, Edith Darnell one time told me, wait, I can't even remember my grandkids' birth dates. Why in the world would I even know or care to know the 7th year, 5th month, 10th of the month? But Rochelle says, obviously it's there for a reason, but I don't know enough to know why. I'm about to show you something that'll give you chills. Are you ready? How is he measuring in the 7th year, in the 5th month, on the 10th of the month? How's he measuring that? In the 7th year of what? Huh? Okay, good. Bill, let me ask you this. Have you ever had your house burned? No. Has anybody in there ever had their house burned? Oh, okay. Have any of you ever been fired from a job? Oh, man, you guys live boring lives. Oh, okay, April, we'll take you. Thank you for your honesty, transparency. So here's the deal. It's traumatic things that happen to you, you will measure your life based upon that traumatic thing. In the 6th year since I've been fired. Are you with me? So what happened to Ezekiel that was at least a little traumatic? Bingo! When he was taken into captivity. In the 7th year, but Bill said something that is exactly right. Here it is. King Jehoiakim of Judah, king of Jerusalem, was taken the same time Ezekiel was. So the measuring of this chapter is from 597. In the 7th year, so let's go to 597. From 597, count 7 years. What year are we at? What year? 590. And Rochelle has said to me before, sometimes it gets confusing. When you're BC, you're going the other direction. You know what? If it's 7 years from now, it would be 2031. But 7 years from 597, you go down, 590. So that's the year. You know the year, 590. Now, in the 5th month, okay, Sue, I'm not expecting you all to remember any of this, but I just, Sue says good. But I'm going to show it to you visually, and I just want you to understand how the Bible is written. Okay. What are our months? How many months do we have? Are they lunar or solar? They're solar. Were the Jews, did they have months that were lunar or solar? They were lunar. So they didn't know what January was, February was, March was. That wasn't even around. By the way, that didn't even come until the time of the Romans, during Julius Caesar, who really loved the summer and named July after him. Yeah. And Augustus Caesar, who didn't want to be outdone by Julius, so he named what? August, after him. So this is 500 years later. So watch. These are the months These are the months of Israel. First month is Abib. Abib. What is Abib? Where did Ezekiel live? Tel Abib. What does Tel mean? It means mountain. What does Abib mean? It means harvest. Notice, the first month begins March and April. The first fruits of harvest. The mountain of harvest is where Ezekiel lived. That's the first month. Ziv is the second, Yerach is the third, and fourth and fifth. Oh, here we go. Nisan. Before captivity, these were the Hebrew names of their months because they had to learn Aramaic. While in captivity, the months changed to Aramaic names. Nisan, Abib changed to Nisan. All these months right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This month is called Ab or Ab. Wait. So when you read here, now in the 7th year from the captivity of Jehoiakim, in the month of Av, that's literally in the Hebrew. But what the English translators have done is say now in the 7th year, they don't put from the captivity of Jehoiakim and Ezekiel, which could have helped you. The Amplified Bible will. In the 5th month, which is the month of Av, on the 10th of the month. Now, why is this date important? Would you be surprised if I told you that 4 years later, in 586 BC, on the 5th month of Av, and on the 10th of that month, Jerusalem fell? So what you have here is the exact date of the fall of Jerusalem 4 years later. And they are coming to inquire of Ezekiel the mind of Yahweh regarding Jerusalem. And the reason, Rochelle, this is important is because they're asking on the exact day that the judgment of God falls on Jerusalem 4 years later. Does that make sense? Now, you say, wait, nobody else would know that. Do you realize that the Jews every year, they have a day of mourning on this day? Now, it corresponds to our August because remember, they start in the spring. So in the solar calendar, this is August the 14th when this occurred. And on our solar calendar, every year, Israel has a day of mourning. On the 5th of month of their calendar, on the 10th of that month, it's a day of mourning for Jerusalem. Because, guess what? When Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans in AD 70, guess what day they fell? The exact same date. On the 5th of the month. On the 10th day of that month. So the 2 times Jerusalem fell, it fell on that date. And the elders are coming to ask, are we going to prosper or are we going to be judged? Isn't that amazing? Any questions? Okay, now you know why it's there, right? And now you know why you should come to Bible study in order to understand why it's there. All right, let's go. Verse 2. And the word of Yahweh came to me saying, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them. Now, by the way, I could be wrong on this, Sally. This could be the elders of Israel that are living in Tel Abib. Okay? I could be wrong. But I don't think I am because the prophecy concerns the people in Jerusalem. And it's the elders in Jerusalem who would be concerned about Jerusalem. And so they're coming to inquire, is God really going to judge us? So, Yahweh says, verse 3, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them, Thus says Adonai Yahweh. God is in all caps, you see that. That's the name of God, the sound of breathing. Let everything that has breath praise Yahweh. That's the last verse of the Psalms. Thus says Adonai Yahweh. God, Yahweh is speaking to Ezekiel. Now, how Does Ezekiel audibly hear him? Possibly. Like Saul audibly heard the Lord on the road to Damascus and nobody else did. Is there a vision? Is it a dream? But he's a prophet. Yahweh says, do you come to inquire of me? Question mark. And the idea here is, are the elders coming to inquire of me, just like you said, Jen, and they're going to you? As I live, declares Adonai Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. Meaning, he is saying to Ezekiel, Ezekiel, you say to them, you come to inquire of me? To Ezekiel, I will not be inquired of you. Ezekiel, tell them that. By the way, why would the Lord not tell him? God has called Ezekiel to be a prophet, to speak to the people on his behalf. Verse 4. Will you judge them? Will you judge them, Son of Man? By the way, verse 4, he says, will you judge them? Will you judge them, Son of Man? Who is the Son of Man here in this text? It's Ezekiel. So here's what Yahweh is saying to Ezekiel in verse 4. This would be like you coming to me and saying, look, there's a friend of yours that you're very close to, Wade, and he is my nephew. And bad things are coming to him, and I need you to go to him and tell him what's going to happen to him. Because I can't bear it. I don't have the heart. So you say to me, will you, Wade? Can you, Wade? Say to them, my nephew, say to him what needs to be said. That's exactly what Yahweh is saying to Ezekiel. Can you say this? Here's what you're to say. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, on the day when I chose Israel and swore to the descendants of the house of Jacob and made myself known to them in the land of Egypt, when I swore to them, saying, I am Yahweh your God. On that day I swore to them to bring them out from the land of Egypt into a land that I had selected for them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands. And I said to them, cast away each of you the detestable things of his eyes. Do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. I am Yahweh your God. But they rebelled against me and were not willing to listen to me. They did not cast away the detestable things of their eyes, nor did they forsake the idols of Egypt. Okay, let me show you something here. The house of Jacob, mentioned in verse 5. What was Jacob's name changed to? Israel. How many sons did Israel have? 12. Joseph, who became king of Egypt, never got any land in the land flowing with milk and honey. It was divided among his 2 Egyptian sons, born to him in Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim. Though they were Jews, they were born in Egypt. But you say, okay, now wait, those 2, that would make 13. Except there was another son of Israel that was not given any land. He was given cities of refuge. What was his name? Levi. Very good. It was the Levitical priest. So that makes the 12 that divided the land. But here's what I want you to notice. The house of Jacob is Israel. It's the nation of Israel. And Yahweh says, when I chose them, when I selected them, I said, put away your detestable idols of Egypt. Put them away. Follow me. But look, verse 8. They didn't listen to me. Can anybody tell me a time that you can know in the Bible when Yahweh is going into a covenant with the one nation of Israel, saying, put away all your idols, follow me, Yahweh, listen to me? Is there one time that you can recount in the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, where they didn't listen and they rebuilt the idols of Egypt? You got it. Remember when they built the golden calves? And they're dancing around the golden calves? They're doing exactly the opposite of what God has called them to do. Okay, now watch. Let's go on. Then, when they disobeyed me, that's verse 8, last part of verse 8, I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to accomplish my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt. What that means is they hadn't even gotten to Canaan yet. They're celebrating the golden calves. I resolved to pour out my anger on them. But look at verse 9. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations among whom they lived, in whose sight I made myself known to them by bringing them out of the land of Egypt. Now, what does your translation say in the beginning of verse 9? Somebody just read it out and tell me your translation. I acted
for my name's sake.
I acted for my name's sake. I acted for the sake of my name. Anybody say anything else? I acted for the sake of my name. Right? Underline that. Here's why. Anytime judgment occurs from God, it is for this reason. I act for the sake of my name, so that my name will not be blasphemed among the nations. Now look at verse 10. So I took them out of the land of Egypt and brought them into the wilderness. I gave them my statutes and informed them of my ordinances, by which if a man observes them, he will live. I gave them my Shabbats, or my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahweh who sets them apart. That's the word sanctified. I gave them the Shabbat to rest, while all the other nations are working, so that nations, when they ask, what are you doing? Well, Yahweh tells us to have this day of rest. Verse 13. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. By the way, let me pause right there. Rochelle, the Shabbats are not only the weekly Shabbats, the Shabbats are the festivals, the 7 festivals. He gave Passover. If you read Leviticus, all of the Shabbats are outlined in full detail. Passover, the Day of Atonement, you've got tabernacles, you've got the waving of the first sheaves, and he outlines them. He gave them those Shabbats or festivals to make them unique, to separate them from the nations. Okay, verse 13. But the house of Israel rebelled against me while they were in the wilderness. They did not walk in my statutes. They rejected my ordinances, by which if a man observes them, he will live. And my Shabbats they greatly profaned. Then I resolved to pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness. Look at this next phrase. To annihilate them. What does your translation say? To destroy them? To consume them. To put an end to. By the way, this is all the language used for the second death. It's all the language used for the second death. This is why I believe the Scripture teaches that those who are judged by Yahweh will be annihilated. Israel is a type of it. Make sense? All right, but let's go on. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations by whose sight I had brought them out. Verse 15. Also I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands. Because they rejected my ordinances, and as for my statutes, they did not walk in them. They even profaned my Sabbaths, for their heart continually went after their idols. Now look at verse 17. Underline verse 17. Yet, your translation may say but. D. Martin Lloyd-Jones said the greatest word in the Bible is the word but. But God. Yet my eye spared them rather than destroying them, and I did not cause their annihilation in the wilderness. By the way, that's grace. That's mercy. So I have people all the time say to me, I can't believe what you believe in grace and the doctrine of election and how God saves His people. I can't believe that way. That's just crazy, because surely it's everybody. And I'm like, wait, you're starting off on the wrong foot. Everybody deserves annihilation. But God in His grace, for the wages of sin is death, destruction, bringing to an end. But the gift of God by His grace is life eternal. Here you've got a picture of grace. Verse 18. So I said, look at this now, I said to their children in the wilderness. Okay, now let me pause right here. I want you to think about this. The elders from Israel have come to inquire of Yahweh in front of Ezekiel. Yahweh responds and says, Ezekiel, tell them this. Do you have the courage to tell them this? he starts telling them what we're reading. Do you realize? Let me see if you're thinking. How many times do you have to repeat something to remember it? We've only 3 times here. Anybody remember the date the elders came, the year the elders came to inquire of Ezekiel? No, I see Hazel laughing. 590.
97.
7 years. Sorry, Rochelle. Good thing. 7 years from 597 is 590. Make sense? 590. When did the Exodus happen? 1495 BC. In fact, to be precise, 1491. They wander in the wilderness for 40 years. They enter Canaan in 1441 BC. For 400 years, they fight the Canaanites and the Jebusites and the Philistines until who's elected king first? Saul. What year? 1051. They fight 400 years. Saul is elected the first king. Who's next? David. Who's next? How many years did they reign each? 40. For a total of how many? 120. 120. And then the kingdom split in 931 between northern Israel and southern Israel. Here's my point. So they come to inquire of the present day. And Ezekiel takes them back 1,000 years. Jan, people want to talk about today. I want to take them back 2,000 years. People want to talk about America today. I want to take them back 250 years to America then. And by the way, that's biblical warrant. You know, Darla, people don't want to learn history, but the Bible gives us the warrant to teach people history because Ezekiel does that. Let's go on. Verse 18. I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the statutes of your fathers or keep their ordinances or defile yourselves with their idols. By the way, anybody know why Yahweh said this to the children of Israel in 1451 when they entered Canaan? I said to the children, walk in my statutes. Why did he say it to the children? What happened to their parents? They died. They came to an end. They died in the wilderness. The entire generation. So now he says to the children, look, I'm not annihilating the nation. I'm saying to you children, walk in my... He's saying the same thing. I am Yahweh, verse 19, your God. Walk in my statutes, keep my ordinances, observe them. Set apart my Shabbats, my Sabbaths, my festivals, my weekly Sabbaths. They shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am Yahweh, your God. Now look at this, verse 21. But the children rebelled against me. They did not walk in my statutes, nor were they careful to observe my ordinances, by which if a man observes them, he will live. They profaned my Sabbaths, so I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. In other words, I propose to do for them what I said I would do in the wilderness. Now it's on their children. Verse 22. I withdrew my hand, and again I acted for the sake of my name, that my name should not be profaned in the sight of the nations in whose sight I had brought them out. Also, I swore to them in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them among the lands. Guys, this is the judgment, the dispersion of Yahweh, because they had not observed my ordinances, but had rejected my statutes, had profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on the idols of their fathers. I also gave them statutes that were not good, and ordinances by which they could not live. Now, look at verse 25. Put a star by it. This verse, God rest his soul, really caused Dr. Darnell all kinds of consternation. If you don't know Dr. Darnell, great Hebrew scholar, taught Hebrew for 50 years, delightful friend of mine and yours, co-taught this class for many years. In fact, funny story, when we first started, Rochelle said, "Oh, we don't want Dr. Darnell here. I mean, he's in his 90s. He can be he's a gracious guy, but he can be a bully sometimes." And Rochelle, what did you tell me afterwards?
No, he was
He was amazing.
wonderful.
He was wonderful. This verse caused him problems. He says, I gave them statutes that were not good and ordinances by which they could not live. And Doc says, that seems to me to be the law. I gave them the law, statutes that were not good. And Doc and I had a gentle debate on this. And I've done some research on it. I said, Doc, God never gives anything that's not good. Okay. This word translated gave simply means He gave them over to the statutes and laws that they followed, which included child sacrifice. He didn't stop it. It's what we call reprobation. He withdrew His hand and gave them over to follow their hearts. Go ahead, Hazel.
Well,
When I read that, I thought He gave them the laws that they were pretty impossible to follow, like the laws of in Leviticus. So that's the beginning of when He's going to talk about bringing the Messiah.
You know what? You could be correct, Hazel. And by the way, good for you. That is Dr. Darnell's position. Dr. Darnell's position is all the Levitical laws He gave to them, and they were not good for them. That's his position. And you could be correct, and that's one of those things in the resurrection on the other side. We'll go up to Jesus and say, Jesus, Hazel and I and Doc are asking, were the laws of Leviticus given, and they were not good for the people of Israel? Ezekiel 20, verse 25.
would you do me a favor when we get there? I'm not good at remembering. You step right up.
Okay, I'll do that, Hazel. Okay, let's go on. And I pronounced them unclean because of their gifts, in that they caused all their firstborn to pass through the fire, so that I might make them desolate, in order that they might know that I am Yahweh. Hazel, this is the reason, verse 26, this is the reason I don't believe 25 is the Levitical law. Here's what they did. Because they were worshiping the idols of their fathers, the Egyptian gods, Baal, Isis, and so on. They're like, well, now wait, Yahweh has told us to dedicate our firstborn to Him. So we're going to do what the nations around us do. We're going to bring our firstborn and we're going to kill them before Baal. Moloch, pass them through the fire. By the way, they did this. Do anybody know where they did this when they ended up taking over Jerusalem, where they offered their children to Moloch to appease the Babylonian god? It was in the valley of Gehenna, where the fire continually burned. And when Jesus talked about the destruction of the wicked, He used Gehenna, translated hell in your Bibles. Hell is not eternal torment. Hell is the end or the destruction of the wicked. Let's go on, verse 27. Therefore, the Son of Man, speak to the house of Israel and say to them, Thus says Adonai Yahweh, Yet in this your fathers have blasphemed me by acting treacherously against me. When I had brought them into the land which I swore to give them, then they saw every high hill, every leafy tree, and they offered there their sacrifices. Every high hill and every leafy tree, it's a grove. It's where they worship the gods. By the way, Council Road in Oklahoma City, do you know what it was called before Council Road? It was called Council Grove. Do you know why it was called Council Grove? Because the Indians worshiped their gods in a grove of woods along that route. So, they're offering their aroma, their drink offerings to false gods. Verse 29. Then I said to them, What is the high place to which you go? So its name is called Bama to this day. Do we have any Alabama fans? You know what Bama means in Hebrew? It means high place. Bama means high place. So Yahweh is saying to the house of Israel, verse 30, Thus says Adonai Yahweh, Will you defile yourselves after the manner of your fathers and play the harlot after their detestable things? When you offer your gifts, when you cause your sons to pass through the fire, you are defiling yourselves with all your idols to this day. And shall I be inquired of you, O house of Israel? As I live, declares Adonai Yahweh. Adonai means king or boss, sovereign one, Yahweh. I will not be inquired of you. Why? Because you're worshiping the gods of the nations. What comes into your mind will not come out when you say, we will be like the nations, like the tribes of the lands, serving wood and stone. The judgment on Israel is their fault. And God judges them for the sake of His name. Now, let's finish up. We only have 4 minutes, and I think we can. Let's go quickly. Verse 33. As I live, declares Adonai Yahweh, surely with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out, I shall be king over you. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out. I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there I will enter into judgment with you face to face. In other words, this is the prophecy of the destruction of Jerusalem. This given on the exact day 4 years before it happens. As I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so I will enter into judgment with you, declares Adonai Yahweh. I will make you pass under the rod. I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge from you the rebels and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the land where they sojourn, but they will not enter the land of Israel. Thus you will know that I am Yahweh. In other words, He's going to do for the people of Israel in Ezekiel's day what He did in the days of Egypt 1,000 years earlier, what He did to northern Israel in 722 BC when they were scattered among the people. It's about to happen to Judah and Jerusalem. Verse 39. Now we're getting to a message of grace. Doc would always say, God never speaks of judgment without talking of grace. Verse 39. As for you, O house of Israel, thus says Adonai Yahweh, go serve everyone with his idols, but later you will surely listen to me. In other words, the judgment will cause them to listen to Him. Nebuchadnezzar's judgment caused him to listen to Yahweh. Anytime you get a loved one who's in sin and transgression, arrested, in prison, don't bail them out. It's the judgment that will cause them to listen to Yahweh. All right, let's go on. And my holy name you will profane no longer with your gifts and your idols. Bill, the Babylonian captivity separated Israel from their idols. Verse 39. As for you, O house of Israel, verse 40. For on my holy mountain, that means Jerusalem, on the high mountain of Israel, declares Adonai Yahweh, there the whole house of Israel, all of them, will serve me in the land. There I will accept them, and there I will seek your contributions and the choicest of your gifts with all your holy things. Verse 41. As a soothing aroma, I will accept you when I bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered. And I will prove myself holy among you in the sight of the nations. And you will know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the land which I swore to give you to your forefathers. There you will remember your ways and all your deeds with which you have defiled yourselves, and you will loathe yourselves in your own sight for all the evil things that you have done. Then you will know that I am Yahweh when I have dealt with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways or according to your corrupt deeds, O house of Israel, declares Adonai Yahweh. Now let me pause right there before we finish. Bill, this is the one text that I believe, he and I have discussed this often, that after the Babylonian captivity, the people who came back had been purged of their idolatry and they are worshiping Yahweh. But the problem is, over time, the religious leaders began to get power and forced the people back into religious idolatry. You got it?
Well, I had a light bulb come on back here.
That's fine. I want you to write it down because I do think revival came to Israel after the Babylonian captivity. And it took another 400 and odd years for them to get cold-hearted again. And God does the exact same thing in AD 70 when He inaugurates the new covenant and says, I'm done. And by the way, so you're listening to Daniel, that's what God says in Daniel 9. He says, 490 years are left for your people, Daniel. And I tell you, from the issuing of the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until the coming of the Anointed One, the Prince, will be, and He counts down. And the timeline is beautiful. Verse 45, we'll finish with this. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face toward Teman, and speak out against the south. Prophesy against the forest land of the Negev, and say to the forest of the Negev. By the way, the Negev is where Israel came from. That's where they started. Hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord God. Behold, I am about to kindle a fire in you, and I will consume every green tree in you, as well as every dry tree. What do trees represent in the Bible? People, man. What he's saying is, your people will be consumed. This is what Ezekiel's saying. The blazing flame will not be quenched, and the whole surface from south to north will be burned by it. By the way, do you see the blazing flame will not be quenched? This is, again, the language of hell. It doesn't mean they continue to be tormented. It means they die. Nothing will stop the judgment. That's all the unquenchable fire means. You can't stop it. All right, let's go on. Verse 48. All flesh will see that I, Yahweh, have kindled it, and it shall not be quenched. Rochelle, unquenchable fire does not mean the evil people are tormented forever. It means the judgment is coming and they cannot stop it. Make sense? Let's go on. Verse 49. Then I said, that's Ezekiel speaking. Ah, Adonai Yahweh, they are saying of me, is he not just speaking parables? Basically, they're saying of him, you're a nut. Speaking in parables. And it's interesting, Jesus, who's also called the Son of Man, does the same thing in his ministry. And he speaks in parables. So this is a chapter of judgment. And the unquenchable fire is the end of the nation of Israel for the sole purpose of rooting out the idolatry and bringing them home to worship Yahweh. In the intertestamental time period, between the close of Malachi to the opening of Matthew, the same kind of rebellion occurs. And so God does, for the third and final time, what he did here. He destroys Jerusalem with the Roman army. But now, will he ever do it again? No. Why not? Because there's a new agreement. And the new agreement is trust Yahweh and live through the work of Jesus Christ. But if you don't, everything we just studied is a picture or a type of the unquenchable judgment for the person who rejects Jesus Christ. We went a little long, but we got done, Jan. No, that's fine. Next week, July 4th, the next week, July 11th, we have a 2-week break, and then we'll come back for Ezekiel 21. Before we go ahead, April.
You said this is the third and final time?
Yes.
I remember years ago I asked you because you were doing a Bible study of what numbers mean in the Bible. And
Yes.
I wasn't able to
3.
say because
Yeah.
I'm teaching Awanas at that time. Because 3 had such a significant
Yes.
meaning in our life.
Yes.
You told me that 3 means completion.
Correct.
So
He's
done.
completing it. He's completed his work with the nation of Israel. So the question is, what's the